Hi, Belinda. Welcome to our very first show. Thank you so much for joining us. And what I'd really like you to do for the viewers is introduce yourself and give us a little bit of a background on you and how you got to be where you are.
So my name is Belinda Clarke, and I have been one of those purebred hospos who have started in the industry, and I thought I might go and get a real job and tried to go and work as an architect, and that didn't last very long. And then I went straight back into hospo and said to my parents, like, that's not going to work out. I can't be behind a computer every day. And have never looked back. I love what I do, and I absolutely have worked between amazing venues and different types of, hospitality. People think that it's either front of house or back of house, but it's kind of a lot more than that. And I've been very privileged to work with amazing people here in Australia and overseas, and I think it's the best. I wouldn't take anything back. It's been the best thing I've ever done in my life.
That's really cool. What other countries have you worked in?
So I made the brave call, those stupid things that you do when you're about 18 years of age and think that you're invincible. And I've got my training and I'm good to go. And I decided to go overseas and work for Gordon Ramsay. And literally packed up my bag, told my parents I'm going, hopped on a plane, knocked on the door and said I want a job, and I got a job, which was great, and worked for Gordon Ramsay for a little while, and then in his two restaurants, not only in Chelsea but also in Petrus at St James's Street in London, and then went up to Scotland and worked a little bit up there, and those kind of little hopscotch jobs that you do around Europe, when you're 18, 19, 20. Had a great time, had an amazing time doing that, and then came back home. And again, thinking, I've worked for Gordon Ramsay, I've done this, I've done that, I'm ready to tackle the world, and came back and have had some great opportunities here in Australia. So, and of course, one was working with Jamie's Italian, as part of the great bringing Jamie's to Australia cohort. And, doing that was a great opportunity to work with an international brand, to work with an international well-known person, and I guess also brand and what they stand for, and opening up multiple restaurants around the country with Jamie, which was fantastic, through lots of different things. So, yes.
Wow. So can you just confirm there's no truth to the rumour that you taught Gordon Ramsay to swear?
Definitely not. In fact, my lips were sealed. I saw a lot. I'm not going to lie. There was a lot that went down, and that will go to the grave. It was, I did not teach Gordon how to swear.
All right. Well, as long as you weren't the one he was swearing at, then we're all good.
Definitely not. I was a good girl.
All right. Well, we'll leave that at that. So what's your current role, and how does that work?
So my current role is the Chief Operating Officer at the Restaurant and Catering Association of Australia. That role was brought to my front door when the current CEO said, I've got a new job and this is a big one, and there's a lot going on in this industry and I need some help. And I came on board to be able to, I guess initially, I probably didn't really understand the role, if I'm honest. And that came very quickly with what that responsibility looked and entailed. And how I feel about it is that I feel like I get to work for my friends. I feel I get to be that conduit between who I respect in the industry and what they do and how they do it and what goes into that, and be that voice that takes it to the next level to be able to help and support them to be able to get what they need done. So I feel like I'm in quite a, I guess, an empowering role, a role that a lot of weight and support, but a role I don't take lightly as well.
No, definitely not through my dealings with you, but you've been, and I'm going to choose my words wisely here, I was going to say you've been around, that's in hospitality, that's probably a poor choice of words, but you've seen a lot. So what are some of the changes you've seen across the industry since you started?
I guess some of the changes that I've seen, I think number one would be change. I think that I've been quite inspired by what I've seen when it comes to change. And I don't think change comes easy. I think change is really tough. And I think that in our industry, we've always had this issue of low profit margins and challenges. And I think that, what I've seen in the last few years has been a lot of people have to really get out of that comfort zone and embrace that change. And I've watched a lot of people do some amazing things when it comes to change. I think that we've all seen that there might be the hottest restaurant around, and they're really hot for 6 months and, they're fully booked and you can't get in and this and that, and then they're gone. And I think that, you've seen that there's been a real shift and change in our industry. And I think that anyone who is in hospitality has got to have that real, I guess, grit and determination and I guess that drive. And I think there's a real shift in that, I think, that we've seen. I think that in previous years, you've heard the terminology of fine dining. That terminology, I don't know anyone who talks about fine dining anymore. There's this whole new classification of what we call a fine dining, which is that premium dining. We all love to go out and we love to have good service, but it doesn't mean it needs a white tablecloth. It doesn't mean it needs all these extra elements. It's this whole premium dining. And I think that's a whole new phase that we've seen that's evolved. I think the word wellness, word wellness has not appeared. If I had have said the word wellness in hospitality 5 years ago, I probably would have got locked in the cool room. But the word wellness is a new word and terminology that I think has been introduced to the culture of our industry. And I think it's almost like the word social distancing, when that came in with COVID, it was like, what does that mean? Like, what does social distancing mean? Like, is there a dialogue for social distancing and how do I explain social distancing? I think that wellness is one of those words, and they're kind of like, yes, I've got wellness is important, and it's really important to what I do, but I don't think people know how to actually embrace that. I also think that we've seen that chefs have always loved great produce, but now I'm thinking we see this whole new appreciation from consumers and appreciating where it's come from, the story behind it and what it is. And I think that's kind of a new side that we've seen in the last few years, let alone, knowing your basics of your numbers and understanding and making a change in your business and all those basic things that have kind of happened as well. But yeah, they probably see the biggest changes that I've seen in the last couple of years.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And speaking of the new C word, COVID, if you knew how it was going to affect the hospitality industry, would you have taken on or stayed in your role?
I'd have to say I'm the hospo diehard. So yeah, if I had have had that vision of what was about to happen, I think I would have probably embraced it a lot more, maybe been a little bit more prepared. I think it gave the opportunity to really make a difference and to be able to stand and show and be that leader in what people needed to hear. I think it was a really tough time. And a lot of people just needed that reassurance or that person to talk to or to say, am I alone in feeling like this? Or what do I do? And how do I cope with this? And take away, like, I don't even know what size containers to use. I don't even know how to do this. Like, I don't use technology. I think it was a lot of that confidence and that support. So I'd have to say 100%. I'd do it all over again. It wasn't easy. It was not easy, but I'd do it again.
I think you partly answered my next question, but would you ever approach the situation differently in hindsight? And if so, how?
Yeah, I think that nothing's ever certain. To start with, nothing's ever certain. But I've had a privilege to see, I guess, from a government side of the decisions they made and then also from a health side. And I think I learned a lot between government and health, but then also business. And so I was between the three of them. You know, I was the one that held saying, I want to push the big red button and tell me why I don't want to push it. You know, stop me now. And then you've got government saying, what's going to happen if this happens? And then you've got, of course, the businesses saying, what is happening? You know, help me, help me, help me. So I think I had the privilege of being in between all of them. In hindsight, maybe I'd like government to be aligned and health to be aligned. I kind of felt that it was really hard to be able to have every single state operating on a very different level and having different guidelines. And that was hard to stay across, and also to inform, and also to produce resources, to be able to be insightful in what needed to happen. And I think working with government on every single different level at different speeds was hard. And I would have loved to have seen a bit more of an alignment when it came to that. And I think I would have also, and this is another hindsight, and hindsight's an amazing thing, I would have loved to have not lost all of our amazing skills in our industry. You know, I understand why it happened, I really do. But I think now we're really feeling what that means in losing all those amazing skills in our industry. And we're finding of what that means to us now, and how long it's going to take to be able to come back from that, and what we need to do. So I would have loved to have been able to hold, and I know a lot of businesses did, and they did an amazing job in retaining those staff. But you know, the message was very clear to go home. And I think that was quite tough. And so hindsight, I'd say maybe not to have lost all of our skilled workforce.
Oh, so many changes, but do you think any of them are here to stay?
Oh, yeah. I think there's some really positive things that are here to stay. I think things like booking time slots. I think the time on table. I think the amount of businesses have been quite conscious of how consumers feel when it comes to how many people are in a space. So a lot of restaurants have decided to loosen tables inside, but also embrace the outdoor dining. I think it was almost comical when they said that the leader of the country was going to be leading the state of Victoria when it comes to outdoor dining. And we're going into winter, and everyone was like laughing, going, it's Victoria, as if we can do outdoor dining. And they were like going, right, we're going to open up the streets, we're opening up the pavements, we're taking up car spaces. How do we do this? What do we need to do? And I think that that's certainly something that's here to stay. You know, I was down in Melbourne recently, and they were pumping. They were embracing the change of the outdoor dining. They were loving it. I don't think it's going to go away. I think that that's definitely here to stay. I think that that whole move between the traditional bar seating and more lounge seating is spacious between people is here to stay. I think that dark kitchens and virtual brands are here to stay. Consumers definitely have led the change when it comes to delivery and when it comes to what they want. And we all love to go out. We all love to go out and have drinks. We love to have dinner, but we also love now. There's this whole new appreciation of getting what I love delivered and having that that brought to my front door. So I think there's also that new element of a lot of brands have now embraced these dark kitchens and delivery, and being able to have maybe not their own brand, but a virtual brand using out of a secondary kitchen and embracing that style of what consumers are really driving. You know, I think that's a whole new market that consumers are driving. I also think that maybe last minute dining, last minute mindset is maybe here to stay for a little bit longer. I had some stats recently, and last year, and you're not going to believe this, but last year Airbnb and bookings on some of the premium platforms of bookings were made within 4 hours of check-in or the booking. 90. Nobody's pre-planning anything. Everything's happening last minute, and we need to be changing our business model and accepting that people aren't going to be pre-booking a month, 2 months in advance. They don't know what's going to happen. They're booking everything last minute, and I think that's probably here to stay for a little bit longer.
Valuable. So where do you see the hospitality industry in the next 3 to 5 years?
Another word that is probably being used a lot more of late than ever before is the word sustainability. It's another word that no one really knows the definition, and it's the most Googled word in the last 2 years is sustainability. Nobody really knows what they need to do and how to do it, but we all know we need to do something. So I think that moving forward, sustainability is really important. And my, interpretation of sustainability can be different to others, but I think it's sustainability on many areas. It's on yourself, it's on your brand, it's on your team, it's on your footprint, it's on what you do, and it's how you're going to be here moving forward in the future. So I think there's a whole lot more on sustainability that we're going to see. Also, the fastest growing community right now is the digital nomad. Digital nomad, what is that? Digital nomad is that new defined person who has a job, part-time, full-time. They're a traveler. They live in different places. They don't have that permanent footprint. A lot of the time they're working in our restaurants. They're working in cafes. They're having their meetings in cafes. That is their base, absorbing the Wi-Fi, purchasing, having meetings. I think that is probably here to stay for a little bit longer. I think that a new priority is certainly investing in self. In fact, I think it's one of the top priorities that we will see is people who want to invest not only in your business, but people individually are investing in self. They want to know what they're eating, what they're doing, how this impacts me and what I need to do, and making decisions for themselves and their family. So I think that we'll see that a lot more. I think that we've also seen a lot of shift in where people live. I think where people live and where people work has been a very big change. And I think that that's something that's going to be here in the next 3 to 5 years of where people have moved regionally, and you're going to see a huge amount of growth in regional areas where people have that flexibility arrangement, that hybrid arrangement with working from home and also working, of course, in their offices. But what that means to their local communities, I think that we're going to see a whole lot of shift and change when it comes to that as well. I think we'll see a lot of change when it comes to the dynamic of, we see the figures that revenue is stabilized pre-COVID for what it comes to food service. But I talk to some businesses and they don't feel that. And of course they don't, because it's a two-speed economy. And I think that we have to really understand and appreciate that. And our job is to make sure we're communicating that at a government level as well, to make sure they're not seeing one figure, thinking it's one shoe fits all. And they understand the way that things are moving and changing and how that looks and feels.
Awesome. Now, if you had a magic wand, what would be your first 3 wishes for the hospitality industry?
Just 3.
Well, you can go more.
So I think our industry is a community and an industry of doers. You know, I think we're really a doers industry. And I'm so proud of that, you know, number one. I think that we're absolutely a doer. I think if I can provide, you know, what I'd like to see with a magic wand would be, I'd like to see a continual strength to keep fighting. I think that we need to make sure we keep fighting. We aren't finished. There are going to be some more challenges ahead of us. And I'd love to see a little bit more just resilience, that you've got this and you've got the power to keep fighting. I think also the power to be creative and keep that creative entrepreneurial spirit going. I think that is so important. I I think appreciating in our world the difference of local produce and how special Australia is, and appreciating that local produce. And I think now more than ever, we need to look at what we have on our shores and what we do and how we use it and the story behind it, and appreciate that and tell the story. I think that there is nothing more than understanding what we do and how we do it, and realizing that we have a really important part in this. I think also ensuring government back us. I think there's been a long time where a government has been demonizing, it's a strong word, demonizing our industry with its wage theft and unsociable hours, and why would you want your kids to work in this industry? And I think that they need to change their dialogue. I think that with a magic wand, I'd love to see a lot more support in that new change in culture and change in understanding what we do and the opportunities, the amazing opportunities in our industry. I'd love to see a real shift in that, I guess, would be my 3/4.
I'd agree, and look, that's where I started too. And I think people need to understand that it can be a career, it can be, fulfilling, not just a part-time job.
Yeah, and there is still that purpose to have that part-time job, and we understand that. But there's also a whole other career opportunity in telling that story and backing that story and supporting it. And I think that we need to now shift that to the next level. I think is really important for us.
So going from a magic wand to a crystal ball, what do you think are the key trends coming through over the next few years?
What I'm hearing is there's a real trend with Indigenous and storytelling and dual naming. I think we're going to see in the next 12 to 18 months, which will be the new normal for us to be able to talking about those capital cities and those really prominent areas in Australia and dual naming with Indigenous names. I think I see a lot of talk about embracing what we've got, embracing that is unique to us and what's important to us. And I think that that's going to be something that we see a lot. Community. We have to go back to basics. Community is so important in what we do in every aspect of our business. And I think if we are working with people and supporting people, that's number one, it really, really important. I also think that there's a real trend between health. I think we see a lot of a trend between non-alcoholic beverages, and there's a real shift in that mindset, and also on health and well-being, on what you're eating and portion sizes and the types of food that you're putting on your menu, what people want to see now. So I think that that's a real shift and change that we'll see. But also going back to that Indigenous, it's not about, I don't want to take this as a grain of salt, but it's not about just putting on something on your menu that's Indigenous ingredient. It's about then owning it. That's not ticking the box. It's about that full circle and understanding and that education and kind of really communicating that and owning that and supporting that all the way through as well.
Sounds good. So what is Belinda Clarke's ideal hospitality experience?
Oh, well, it depends on what day you ask me. I think my ideal experience would be it's got to make me feel good. It's got to have a wow factor. It's got to resonate. And it can be the most basic experience, but it's got to actually impact and tell me a story and make me feel good. I think that anything that involves my family makes me feel good. And I think that any environment where someone has really gone out of their way to create that wow factor and make me feel special and personalized, that makes me feel good. And that can be at any level.
So not Gordon and Jamie fighting over cooking for you?
Yeah, I'll take that too.
And what's your favourite drink and meal?
Well, I guess, probably a few years ago, I'd say a Negroni or a margarita on a Friday afternoon would be my favourite. But I think we've all moved into a different phase. I feel like we've moved into a new phase of we all live a fast life. We all live a very fast life, and sometimes we appreciate the quiet times and the slow times. And so it may not be now, and I don't even know the last time I had a Negroni or a margarita, if I'm honest. But it's more about, I guess it's more about the what am I doing, how am I feeling, and maybe a glass of wine. Maybe it's a nice glass of Pinot, maybe it's a glass of bubbles if I'm celebrating, but it's about something that means something, and I think that it's about going a little bit slow and appreciating those moments, and then embracing those moments and enjoying it on whatever I'm doing. But there's nothing that makes me happier than I've lived in Newtown for a very long time, recently moved to the coast, but nothing makes me happier than to take my family to the local Thai restaurant and order a whole lot of beautiful Thai fresh food in the middle of the table, bottle of Pinot and Pinot Gris, and to be able to share it and see their smiles and have a good time. And have that hospitality of the locals, and they know what I like, what we do, and it's those basic things that make me super duper happy.
Nice. Going back to a slightly more serious question. If you had the minister in front of you and he had to listen and you could say anything you like, what would you want to say to the minister to get your message across?
First of all, which one?
Fair, yeah.
I think my message would be, and this is my job every day. This is in all due respect to ministers, they don't often have a huge memory. And so you have to keep reminding them and making it real to them and resonating to them. So I guess my words would be, in very much due respect, would be to stay on point, be accessible. It's not always an election. So focus on your local community, make a difference, and to reduce the red tape. There's so much red tape, and I think that makes it really hard. So I think showing them that this is what would happen if you knew this and it would impact this person, that would be what I would say to a lot of ministers. But I get to talk to ministers a lot. But yes, my message is always consistent.
Fantastic. So we've worked out what's going to happen in the hospitality industry in the next 3 to 5 years. What's going to happen for you? Where are you going to be in 3 to 5 years?
I don't know. That's a very good question. I think that I wish I had that crystal ball that you talked about earlier and to see where I'll be. But what I do know is I know that I will be doing something that impacts and makes a difference. I know that I will be giving it my 110%. And I also know that I'll be doing something that talks about culture. And I think that's really important to me. And I've got my own true feelings and brand and what I believe in. And I know that I will be doing what's important to what I believe in and what I can help with the industry. But I know I will be in the industry, that's for sure.
I have no doubt, making a difference as usual. All right. Well, cheers to you, Belinda. Thank you so much for your time and being part of our very first show, which hopefully is not our very last show, but it won't be any reflection on you because it was fantastic input and we appreciate it very much.
I feel very privileged. I feel very honoured, and I thank you so much.